Hello everyone, this is part 3 of What If Naruto and Hinata Had a Kid, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe, it gives me more motivation. Enjoy. Relatives like you make it really hard to discipline a child you know. Hinata scolded as best she could while eating her own strawberry ice cream cone. I'm soon to be family. I can spoil her within an inch of her life until I have my own. Tenten smiled at the little girl sitting between them on the park bench eating her vanilla cone that was de-sping all over her hands. Yeah, then we'll see how you like it. Hinata shot back smiling. You really think you're going to be able to stomach my kid after having one of your own? Tenten asked, eating her chocolate ice cream cone. It's easy when they're not your kids, Hinata said almost too slyly. After a brief moment of silence, both girls giggled then sighed. Speaking of Neji, is he on a mission? I haven't seen him or you in a while. Over the years the two girls had become close. Tenten had become the sister Hinata had always wished Hanabi would be. Both her cousin and his girlfriend made frequent visits to her home to pay visit and spoil the little girl. Tenten, however, was easily one of Yumi's favorite people in the world, always bringing her gifts and sweets of some sort to rot her teeth. Hinata couldn't count how many times she had asked Tenten to stop before Yumi began to ignore Hinata completely and heed on her friend's every word. But the brunette refused to listen. He left with Lee this morning. I'm sticky, Yumi informed, whipping her sticky sugary hands on her t-shirt. Prepared, Hinata pulled out the wet napkins from her purse. She gently whipped the little girl clean and even replaced her shirt with a new one. Mama, where we going? Yumi asked, taking sudden interest in making designs in the dirt with a stick she had found. Yeah, where are you going? Tenten asked, finishing her ice cream. To Sakura's. She asked for some books that I had, so we're going to drop them off, Hinata said, finding another stick and joining her daughter. When Yumi drew a sun, Hinata drew the flowers underneath it. When Yumi drew squiggles saying it was her name, Hinata giggled and wrote out her daughter's name in her perfect handwriting. It's been years, but it's still strange to see you with her. Tenten voiced over the two's conversation of Hinata spelling out Yumi's name with the little girl repeating it. Thanks. I just mean, I never expected it from the timid and shy one of everyone. Did you? Tenten asked thoughtfully. Hinata thought about the words. Did she ever think she would be right here right now with her? Did she ever think when she was growing up that at 21, instead of going on A and B class mission and drinking with her friends on her days off, she would sitting on a park teaching her daughter how to spell her name? Did she ever think that instead of continuing her life as a ninja to prove herself to her father and clan, she was living on the other side of town as a stay-at-home mom, cleaning up dolls and colors instead of cleaning the blood from her kunai? Did she ever think that right now she couldn't imagine wanting her life any different than what it had become? It never even crossed my mind, Hinata said, smiling at the little girl still proclaimed an assortment of squiggles as her name written in the dirt. She was no stranger to fear, it was part of her job. She couldn't count on all her fingers and toes how many times she had felt it over the years. Whether it was the fear of her first kiss, a dangerous mission, or even just those unsettling nerves you got when trying to find those perfect words to tell someone you loved them. Fear was all the same and all too familiar. Yet sitting her now was different. Sitting her with Sakura next to her in the late hours of night in the Hokage's office waiting for her was a different kind of fear. It wasn't uncertainty that had ruled the rest of her life. It was the fear of that which was already certain. She knew her odds. She knew when it came down to it, Sakura, as wonderful as she was, would not lie for her. And to be honest, she wouldn't want her to. She also knew Tsunade was not a stupid person, she was far from it. If she hadn't figured it out now, she was sure going to figure it out within the first 5 seconds of seeing Hinata. And then Tsunade would act as Hokage and tell Hinata it was her duty to inform her father that his 17-year-old daughter is pregnant. She wasn't sure what would happen after that, or maybe she did, but she wanted to deny it a bit longer. She looked over at Sakura, who for the most part looked very calm. Her legs were grossed in front of her, slightly dangling. She looked at her nails, picked at her cuticles, or bringing them to her mouth periodically. Her eyes were unfocused and her hair fell into her face. If anyone looked in on the room, they would have thought Hinata was the only one who looked so sickly and pale with nerves. But Hinata knew Sakura, she knew the quirks she had, and biting her nails was something she did only when she was so very nervous. It comforted her a little to know Sakura wasn't doing so great either. When she heard the door behind her open with a squeak and then shut, she almost jumped out of her skin. "Hello girls," Tsunade said in an almost cheerful, cool voice, settling down in her chair, placing some files on her desk. "Hello," they said in unison, both unsure of really how to answer that welcome. "Do you know why I asked to speak with you right now?" she asked, looking from face to face. Hinata knew why, but she wasn't really that willing to be first to speak either. When Sakura didn't answer either, letting her gaze shift around the room, Tsunade gave out a small sigh. "Sakura, can you explain to me why Hinata was pulled off the mission?" "She's sick," Sakura said so simply and confidently that even Hinata almost believed it. She was sick in a matter of speaking. She did sort of have some kind of parasite living inside her at the moment. "Sick? Sick with what?" Tsunade asked, a smile appearing on her lips that made Hinata's stomach do a small flip. "You wrote down, personal, on her report. That makes me curious, Sakura. I know you, and I know if you felt a ninja was too sick to go on a simple search and rescue mission, you would call attention to it. And I know you, Hinata. I know you wouldn't back down from a mission if it wasn't drastically serious. So what is ever the matter? It really has begun to get me worried." "Tsunade, with all due respect, but as head medic I have the authority to call a ninja off a mission if I feel the need to do so," Sakura started confidently but was interrupted. "Yes, that's true, Sakura, but as head medic you are also responsible to bring such a thing to my attention. And a ninja, one was serious as Hinata, to be curiously removed from a mission without anything other explanation other than personal, raises concern. Care to explain?" When neither girls said any response, Tsunade continued. "I'm disappointed. I really thought you two were going to come clean," she said, folding her arms and leaning back in her chair. "I saw Suki today, you know." Both girls visibly tensed. "She told me something very interesting. She told me that when she took Hinata's physical, Sakura interrupted taking control. And she also said Sakura didn't give any explanation, only demanding the position after Hinata took a pregnancy test." A thick silence was placed in the room. Suddenly Hinata found herself beginning to sincerely dislike the girl. "So are you girls going to say anything?" Tsunade asked, lifting an eyebrow, leaning forward again. She was giving them one last chance to confess. Hinata began to weigh the options. If she came clean now, chances are Tsunade might go a bit lighter on her because she confessed. However, as much leniency as she could grant, she still wasn't completely sure Tsunade wouldn't tell her father, as she was sure she was obligated to. Then again, if she didn't confess, chances were pretty high that to teach her a lesson Tsunade would do everything by the book and then some, no ands, ifs or buts to stop her. "Hinata asked for my confidence, I granted it," Sakura started. It was noble what she was doing, but she didn't deserve to be in trouble for Hinata's mistakes. "I'm pregnant," Hinata said out loud, silencing Sakura in mid-sentence, causing both women to peer at her. She saw Sakura give her a mouth-open look at her side. Tsunade, on the other hand, looked as calm and collective as ever. It sounded so strange saying it out loud to someone else. For a brief moment she actually didn't even think it was her voice that said it, faintly hoping she was still in some bizarre dream. She saw Tsunade close her eyes and then fall back in her chair. That is personal," she voiced, and looked down at her desk instead of the girls. Hinata jumped to defend her friend. Even if she had confessed that didn't secure Sakura's fate, she was still in very big trouble for going against policy. "Please don't be upset with Sakura, she was only trying to help me. I asked her not say anything, she didn't want to, but she did because I asked her. It wasn't her fault," Hinata pleaded, but the woman lifted her hand to stop her. "What would have happened on your next mission, Hinata?" she asked, looking at her with golden piercing eyes. "What excuse could you have used to not draw attention to yourself? You're sick today, but what about next time? Will you be sick then too? What were you planning to say to keep everyone from getting suspicious or worse, very worried about you?" Hinata shrunk back. She hadn't thought that far in advance. She just wanted to get through this one. She was going to worry about that when it hit her. But Tsunade made a point. What would she be able to say? Whatever she said, someone would point it out and someone would see through the holes. They weren't a village of ninjas for nothing. They were trained to see through the holes of someone's story. And you, Sakura, Tsunade continued in her motherly and lecturing tone. It is admirable what you did for Hinata, but you of all people should know something such as this is not to be kept under the table. You should have informed me from the start. We could have figured something out without causing too much commotion. That was very irresponsible of you, Sakura. Sakura had no recovery for that one. She sat back in her chair and bowed her head. There was a silence between the three of them. Hinata waited for someone to speak, something to break the tension, but nothing came. Hokage-sama, what are you going to tell? She could get the words out. Saying them out loud might make them inevitable. It is procedure to inform family members, and seeing as you still live in your father's house, I am inclined to. No, please don't. Hinata jumped suddenly, her eyes on the verge of tears. However, Tsunade said, ignoring the girl's outburst. Seeing as it is a different situation, I will make you a deal. A deal? You have 1 month to do this your way. If you however ever fail to achieve that, I will have to step in for you and do my job. A ninja suddenly pregnant, especially at your age, is a concern, you know that. Hinata nodded slowly, of course she knew that. Thank you, was all Hinata could think to say. She had a whole month to try and figure out how to drop this bomb and hopefully not get killed in the processes. It was more than she could have asked for. You may leave, Hinata. Sakura, please stay, Tsunade said, dismissing her. Hinata made a bow at her Hokage and turned to leave. She would meet Sakura at home. When Sakura had returned home that night, she assured Hinata that things weren't going to hell in a handbasket anytime soon. She didn't tell her what the two had talked about, nor did Hinata ask questions about it. If she was meant to know, she never would have been asked to leave in the first place. Over the next week, Hinata stayed with Sakura. When Sakura went to work in the morning, Hinata stayed in bed being the sofa, but Hinata wasn't really to ever complain. She could have gotten the floor or the broom closet for all she cared. Sakura was really going out of her way for her. It was actually nice to be off in hiding for a week. She almost started to think of it as vacation. Staying in bed in her pajamas, able to eat anything she wanted with no one yelling at her for her poor choice instant. However, then on her 4th day her feet started to fidget and her mind just seemed so bottled up. Her vacation quickly became house arrest. She couldn't really go out for a stroll in Konoha for some fresh air. If anyone saw her who wasn't supposed to see her, might inform her father she was in town while her team was off still on their mission. She knew her village enough and its talkers to know within a few seconds of stepping outside the door someone would see her and someone would tell. She was stuck in this house. She did, however, try and make use of her time alone. So far she had 1 month to break the news to 2 people. Tsunade had given her the time to tell it to 1, but there were more parties involved in this equation. She began to strategize her approach. When she told her father, be first or second, there was a very high, almost inevitable chance that she would be kicked out of the house. No, scratch that, Hinata knew she would be kicked out of the house. She thought of a place to stay during that time. She could stay with Kiba, he always had an open door for her. No, that would work. If she stayed with him, Kiba would want to know what was wrong, and she wasn't sure she could really tell him. She couldn't very well stay with Sakura. She was already doing so much for her as it was. How could she ask her for more? Maybe Naruto. So far that was her best choice. Her mind began to dance with ways to break the news to her blonde and somewhat dense boyfriend. She loved him dearly and she knew those feelings were returned to their fullest extent, but this was really very big. If she had to put all her faith in Naruto she would, but that was asking a lot from the boy. If she was having such a hard time with this, how was he going to handle this? She knew she had to tell him alone, she knew she had to say it fast before her nerve would leave her. But who to tell first? If she told her father first and Naruto second, there was a chance after being kicked out of the house her father would go on a mouse rampage for the boy, and Naruto would be completely confused as to why her father was seeking blood. If that happened, then it was likely her father would be the one who would break the news to him. She shuddered at the thought. That was the worst possible way to tell Naruto. Well, she had a month to really think this through before taking action. She had time to work out every single possible angle. That night when Sakura came home, Hinata had fallen asleep with the television on. It wasn't until a pair of keys fell on the counter and refrigerator door opened did Hinata open her eyes from her spot huddled under the blankets. She saw Sakura in the kitchen. Even though half her face was hidden, she could see she was upset. Did she get into another fight with Lee? Sakura, she asked, sitting up, rubbing the sleep out of her eyes. You just get home. What time is it? Without answering her question, Sakura asked her own. Have you thought of what you're going to tell Kiba and Shino when they come asking for you? She had considered it. She knew she had to think of something, but telling them the real truth wasn't first on her list. Partly because she knew Kiba would take on Hiyashi's spirit once the news was out in the open. No, not really. Sakura didn't look at her, putting her drink back in the fridge. What about Naruto? I've thought about it, but so far nothing seems like the right way. She watched Sakura go through her mail, then walk calmly to her. Something shifted inside Hinata's stomach. Something had happened. Sakura, you better think of something fast then. Naruto's back early. Her heart leapt up and sank at the same time. He was back already, but he wasn't scheduled to be back until the end of the week at the earliest. Did he? She gulped, her hand grabbing her chest. Did you see him? She asked quietly. I did. What did you say? I was surprised to see him. He told me negotiations went better than planned, so they were able to return early. He asked about you and I said you were on a mission with Kiba and Shino. I advise you to get to him before they do, though. He'll ask about you to them if he doesn't see you first, and they'll spill your cover. Yeah. When would I be back from my mission? Friday maybe. I'll keep a lookout if you want. I can call you when I see them so you can find him before they do. Sakura smiled sweetly at her. Hinata gave her a similar smile but wasn't able to put her full heart in it. She wanted to see him so bad. She wanted to be held by him like they always did when he returned. She wanted to be there when he tried to sneak into her bedroom so they could share a night together. She wanted to be with him, and yet at the same time she was so scared to be with him. He would ask questions she wouldn't be able to answer. I'm going to take a shower, Hinata announced. The sudden reminder of how messed up everything was about to become made her head hurt. She needed to be soothed, and nothing did that better than hot water for her. She didn't know how long she had been in the shower. Just standing under the hot drops soothed her worried thoughts. If Sakura was getting impatient, she wasn't showing it. From time to time, without realizing it, she let her hands drift over and rest on her abdomen. A child in me, my child. The words drifted in and out of her head. A baby inside of her, she now a mother. She had no mother in her memory. She had no motherly figure to look to or take notes from. She only had a very stern father who she only strived to be looked as not a failure. She had given up looks and words of affection from the man a long time ago. How would she know how to give a child anything like that? She even had trouble showing Naruto real affection, their first few months of dating being so foreign to it. She had heard instincts came over a woman when this happened. If this was true, maybe she would be okay. She did rely on instincts many times in her life, and it had gotten her out alive pretty nicely. When she shut off the shower, she heard a knock on Sakura's door. Thinking nothing of it, she continued to dry her hair and dress. It wasn't until she heard his voice her body seemed to freeze. Sakura-chan. His voice was loud and carefree. Hinata could have sworn her stomach physically flipped. Naruto, what are you doing here? Sakura's voice sounded surprised and confused at the same time. Yeah, I know it's late, but I was wondering if you had any leftovers. Sakura, is someone here? He had noticed Hinata's mess of blankets on the couch. Her body stiffened. No, I was just done washing those. You don't have any food at your house, Sakura said, quickly changing subject. Hinata sent out a silent thank you to her friend. Nothing edible anymore, and everything's closed, so I can't go out and get something. Yeah, let me check. There was silence outside the door. Hinata could hear Sakura moving around in her kitchen. Did you see Hinata before she left? He asked suddenly. His tone had changed. It wasn't hard for Hinata to miss that chance in his voice. Yes, Sakura didn't lie. Was she? Okay, what do you mean? I dunno, it was weird. Something felt a bit strange. Never mind, forget I said anything. It's probably nothing. She seemed fine if that's what you're asking. I'll let you know when she gets back into town, okay? That'd be great. Hinata's heart warmed at his concern for her. then suddenly sounding so at the thought of seeing her again. She felt her heart swell, for a second, but only for a second. She thought of opening that door and revealing everything to him. But it only lasted for a second, and then it was gone. Here you go, it's not too old. Just heat it up and enjoy. Sakura said cheerfully. When they said the goodbyes and Hinata was sure they had left, she came out of the bathroom. Sakura smiled at her still in the kitchen. She was about to speak her appreciation when the door swung open again. She froze in her spot. Sakura, I almost forgot. Hinata. What are you doing here? Naruto stared at her utterly confused. Naruto, why you're back early? X. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.